recording? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We wish to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land within the Shire of Chittering, the Ewart and Muchea peoples. We would like to pay respect to the elders of the Noongar Nation, past and present, who have walked and cared for the land. We acknowledge and respect their continuing culture and the contributions made to this region. I declare meeting open at 7 o'clock on the dot, first time ever. I will note to the members of the gallery that as per Council's Resolution 130423, this meeting is being live streamed. Item 2, record of attendances, apologies, approved leave of absence and announcements. So attendances, we have all of Council present, we have all of the staff, the Chief Executive Officer and Executive Managers, and Executive Assistant, Minute Taker, thank you. Members of the Public Gallery, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, if I count correct. One step ahead of me. Apologies, there are nil. Approved leave of absence, there are nil. Announcements, councillors, the list of attendances are listed on the screen. Are there any additions to make to that list?
I've got one.
Councillor Dewar.
12th of June, Wandena Community Centre meeting.
Nothing further. Item 3, disclosures of interest. I have a disclosure of interest from Councillor Kylie Hughes regarding agenda item CEO 06, Muchea Recreational Users Group. The nature of the interest that all three nominees are known to her. It's an interesting comment. Nevertheless, it's been declared, so thank you. Are there any other disclosures of interest? Anyone? No other disclosures of interest? Thank you. I'll move on. Item 4, public question time. Response to previous public questions taken on notice. PQT01, Michelle Davies, Muchea. Question was, the Council has an opportunity to serve both the sporting and environmental communities by installing 4 netball courts and retaining the marri trees. Why is playing a game of sport more important than caring for the environment? The response, Council's decision to remove 3 fully grown trees was not taken lightly. The Muchea Recreation Centre redevelopment is the largest capital project undertaken by the Shire up to this point and will exceed costs of $5.5 million to finish. Aside from contributions and grants, the Council has borrowed from WA Treasury for a 20-year period to finance the project. This project holds significant importance to the community as numerous generations of ratepayers will contribute towards the facility's expenses and countless generations of children and adults will benefit from the sports facility for many years ahead. Council established a reference group consisting of representatives from each sporting and community group who use the facility and community members to work with architects to ensure the facility design met the user requirements. Through this consultation process, Council made every effort to ensure the best possible outcome for the overall good of the Shire. The Shire is unfortunately restricted, the site is unfortunately restricted and there was no option but to move 3 of the 28 mature trees to achieve a layout that was well thought through for the purposes of the site. During Council deliberations on the project, all the relevant information was put to Council and the resolution was carried to progress the project scope as planned. This included the removal of the 3 trees from the site. Please refer to the agenda items relating to this matter, which can be found on the Shire's website. Since the netball courts and fence represents a structure that has been lawfully approved by Council, the Shire is exempt from applying for a clearing permit under Regulation 5, Item 1 of the Environmental Protection in brackets clearing of native vegetation regulations 2004, which allows for clearing of a site for the lawful construction of a building or other structure on a property, then clearing which does not, together with all other limited clearing on the property in the financial year in which, I'm going to read that again because that sounds terrible, let me try that one again, which allows for clearing of a site for the lawful construction of a building or other structure on a property, being clearing which does not, together with all other limited clearing on the property in the financial year in which the clearing takes place, exceed 5 hectares. That's a very convoluted sentence to say that. But that is how that's written. To mitigate the loss of the 3 trees, Council resolved to plant 30 new trees in appropriate spots on the same grounds. Council's efforts by councillors represent the interests of all people living within the Shire, and sometimes a decision which is popular with a majority group can be unpopular with a smaller group. In years to come, members of our community will be able to enjoy a facility that is fit for purpose and will also have the benefit of additional trees. Public questions. Are there any public questions? Please.
And if you reply to me, Councillor King, I won't be able to hear you. I could read, but I can't hear what you're... I'm sorry, I have a condition. Thank you. So, Colleen Osborne, do you... Okay. A tiny bit of preamble, and it'd be good if everyone is actually watching me when I speak, please. So I want to speak about the trees, the 3 Mary trees in Muchea. Apart from the electors' meeting, I don't feel I've had suitable responses to my many written articles, both in the newspaper and, of course, to councillors, individually or collectively, which I find a bit unusual that individually councillors can't talk to people. So I want to start off by how I've looked at this whole issue, and I have mentioned that I've looked at the issue very closely, and I just want to go back to August 2021 when option 3 within the reference group minutes talked about, and I'll read it as it's in the minutes, that to supply, when the issue of the netball courts came up, would result in a netball court being removed in the short term and a long-term installation of a new netball court. To facilitate the 3 court options for netball in the interim would require resurfacing works to the old court on the north end of the facility adjacent to the cricket nets. Netball would ultimately need 4 usable courts within the next few years to accommodate local competition through the SMNA. Heritage trees would be impacted by this decision, where there is a stronger view of the longer-term residents that the trees need to be retained. That was known in August 2021. It then went on to say, would be nicer if it is a 2-court placement, but at the moment have 3 and 1. Could make it work as long as the courts are installed appropriately. Not really sure whether that's the 3 and 1 or 2 and 2 and a 5th. Then, the next minutes we go to are on the 20th. So, at the time, there was a netball representative that didn't attend the next meeting in October. The next meeting in October was attended by Councillor Hughes. As a councillor, the minutes record Councillor Hughes.
So, Colleen, this is a matter for asking questions.
I will.
Can you get to your questions
I'm sure if you ask the audience, I'm sure they'll be happy. They know what I'm on about. Anyway, I'm telling you that Councillor Hughes then attended where the 5-court issue came up.
Colleen,
I'll get to my
question time, so you need to get to the question.
If I don't give you the preamble, because I'm not sure how much you know, then you won't answer the questions. So I'm trying to raise the issue of where this 5-court came from, and I have asked you who and why we have this 5-court situation, and the worst thing I can see is that a councillor attended a meeting as the netball representative and raised the issue of 5 courts. One more little paragraph, and then, because it relates to my question. further correspondence, subsequent correspondence after October 21 between the netball club, the CEO, led to site architecture reconsidering the court position, and correspondence sent to the user group, the reference group on the 28th of February, and then the feedback received was then sent to site architecture. So what I want, and I asked you this at the electors meeting, I have asked the CEO, will you or will you not, that's a simple question, I don't want you to walk out the big statement you gave me, will you or will you not, yes or no, provide me with the correspondence from the CEO and the feedback that came from the netball club, the user group and the reference group. And if Councillor Ross can advise me where that feedback is from the reference group, because it's not in reference group minutes, so I would like to see, yes or no, the feedback, firstly the correspondence that the CEO wrote to those groups, and I want the feedback, please. It's a simple yes or no because there are consequences if I cannot get that information.
I don't believe all the information that's available has been published.
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
All the information that's available has been published within the minutes
So it's
of
a
the
no.
users group.
I guess you've all seen the correspondence, obviously.
But you've got access to the user group minutes through the website.
No, it's not on the website. It's not in the minutes of the reference group. Councillor Ross might know about that feedback. Councillor Hughes might know because the netball club were asked whatever the correspondence is. What was it?
Look, I'm not sure what correspondence you're exactly looking for. What magic
It's
statement
correspondence
you're
that was
looking
given to me by a Shire officer told me that this correspondence took place.
for. Well, then if you tell us what correspondence took place, then we'll find it.
I've just said. I've just said. The officer said to me, it's here, from the officer, about further correspondence between the netball club and the CEO led to site architecture reconsidering the court position between the 25th of October meeting and the following here. Now, Councillor Ross should know about that feedback. Councillor Hughes should know, she's the netball rep there.
So that correspondence could have been verbal.
Would have been what?
Could have been verbal. There might be no written correspondence, so it could be verbal. So
But it led to 5 courts.
I don't know what.
I'm trying to get to this 5 court business, you see.
I
But you guys don't, two councillors sitting there, what do you know about this correspondence? You provided feedback to site architecture as a result of that correspondence.
We'll take this on notice and we'll try and come up with your answer.
Thank you.
But don't be surprised if we can't provide you one because of the
No,
correspondence.
I won't be surprised.
The correspondence that you're looking for, I don't believe exists. There was correspondence, no doubt, but whether it's the correspondence you're looking for is another thing.
I don't know why it's not in the reference group minutes. I don't know where it is, and it just is, it is so flawed. And it's certainly, Councillor King, not transparent. That's your talk. Let's walk. Sorry. Okay.
Next question.
So far I've got not a yes or not a no. I've got a maybe.
What you've got is, I'll take that question on notice and I'll reply back more specifically because I don't have that information on hand at the moment. So if you want a response, we'll look into it and see what correspondence took place.
And I have impressed upon you about Councillor Hughes attending a meeting as a councillor and suggesting the 5 courts. And I really think, well,
you've asked a question.
You didn't do it.
Next question.
Are you shaking your head?
Next question, Colleen.
I'm sorry, I've looked at the minutes, that's what it says. Second question, and it's through the chair, you may or may not answer, or it's for Councillor Ross. As the chair of the reference group, or any other councillor here, can you tell me what information you received from the Midlands Netball Association in relation to the return of the Muchea Netball Club to the competition, and do you know how many members there are of the Muchea Netball Club? Like, I'm talking about numbers here that you've put in your wonderful
We'll take that on
statement.
notice because we'll have to refer back to the time and the information that was provided at that time.
So you will,
Yeah, we'll reply.
that'll be taken on notice. Thank you. That's my
That's
two
good.
questions. I just wanted to say that I need to tell you that I do support the Muchea facility. Don't imply that I don't, but I needed to make that quite clear. And just one more line from a very wise man. Funny, eh? Democracy is based on the values of freedom of expression. Interaction is a fundamental part of this process. So why, Councillor King, have you and your staff, officers
That's a
and
third
councillors
question. That's a third
decided
question,
to
Colleen.
stifle dialogue and dissent over the destruction of these 3 trees? Because that statement that you sent to me, you did not answer me, you sent me that statement. What you have done is you have stifled those of us who ask questions.
You asked this question so many times, that's why we sent it
Thank
out.
you. I don't...
Councillor Curtis, you
I've
have
had
been
your
responded
replies before,
to.
I don't need them.
Council, let's be honest, Colleen. Council has made a decision, and the decision is to proceed with the project. You don't like the decision, so we can understand you don't like the position, you're opposed to it. So the decision stands. It's been implemented by the CEO. So
Yeah, it has.
unless you can get council to change its decision,
No.
you are wasting your time, to be quite honest.
Thank you very much. That's so wise of you.
But that's the reality of the situation, Colleen. You just need to face reality. You've asked questions, we've given you responses. We've given a singular response that covers how council's decision was structured. You can ask the same question 4 different ways with the same structure. You'll still get the same answer.
That's a
So we
great
can't
lecture
answer
from a
the same
leader.
question different ways.
What...
So thank you, Colleen. You've asked your 2 questions. I'll take further
no,
questions from the
that's on
gallery.
something. If I think of it, I'll be back. Thank you.
Any further public questions?
Alfreda Hare, Pioneer Drive, Bindoon, ratepayer. Been here for 20 years, going on 21. Here's my question. Will you or anyone, will you or will you not provide me with the name or names of the DWER, which is Department of Water, Environmental, etc., officer, whom the Shire officers have communicated with in relation to the advice councillors have received that it is not necessary to submit an application to destroy the 3 marri trees impacted by the provision of the Muchea Recreation Centre?
We won't provide you a name, but we'll confirm that that's the advice we received. So we'll take that question on notice and we'll respond accordingly. We can't provide you a name of DWER staff.
No?
No, can't.
Oh.
But we can certainly give you a copy of the advice that we have got, which
Okay.
I think we've already provided previously, but we'll provide it again if it satisfies you.
Right.
Thank you.
Hello, my name's Nikki. I live on Wallaroo Drive. My family and our neighbours have raised several times over the last year with the Shire that the verge drainage and sump in front of our property is not sufficient for the volume of water that is regularly received in our area. We have undertaken significant and costly works on our own land to remediate this, but these works are limited by the volume of water that enters our property. So I have 2 questions for the Shire. 1, what does the Shire plan to do in the immediate future to rectify this issue and prevent further damage to our property and assets?
We'll take that one on notice.
Okay,
Thank you. But
no worries.
I'm aware of what's going on. I did visit your property and look.
Yes. To this, we were advised by council that there would be an allowance in the maintenance budget to deepen and widen the sump and channel drain if needed. My question is, why hasn't this been utilised as the current size isn't fit for purpose? And can this budget be used to remediate the area around the drain and remove the dirt that was removed when they dug the drain? It's been left on the verge and the verge has been left untidy. Can we make an allowance to tidy this for us and make our street neat and presentable again?
I'll take that one on notice, but I do understand the council did widen that sump.
Yes.
But I think we'll give you a full and final proper response to those questions. So if you allow us to take that on notice, we'll get back to you on that one.
No worries. Thank you.
It's me again. In the words of Paddy Cullen, this is actually part of the email that I've sent to most of the councillors anyway. Our marri trees down at, name is Natalie Valance from Muchea. The marri trees down in Muchea are part of an ecosystem that is entirely exclusive to the southwest of Western Australia in the entire universe. Recently, there was a acknowledgement of the trees as being a national treasure under the State Government Biodiversity Act of 2016, where they acknowledged the sequence of trees between Bullsbrook up to or just beyond Gin as being a threatened ecological community. I think that's actually an additional consideration when thinking about removing the trees down in Muchea. I continue to remain.
You have a question?
Yep, I continue to remain at a loss as to why councillors remain adamant at destroying these heritage trees, and I'm actually offering some signage to be put up should council be inclined to change their minds and reconsider the 1-to-1 court option rather than the additional court that's not required in Muchea. We do have quite a few supporters. Thank you for coming out and seeing our trees. There's been a few more that have been added as well.
Question, Natalie.
Reconsider the destruction of our trees
Will council consider the...
at the Muchea Recreation Centre.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Yes.
Robert Pizzino, 1 Casuarina Close, Bindoon Town Site. Seems the meeting tonight's been dominated by these trees for the basketball stuff. I'm not interested in basketball, I played it when I was a kid. But is there a demand usage for that, to have 5 courts?
I'll correct you, there's not 5 courts, there's 4 netball courts.
Yeah, well,
Planned to be 4 netball courts.
for the extra court or something.
Well, the extra court is not lit, it's not fenced, and council has not made a decision on whether that's staying or going at this point.
Okay.
So
if you want,
it sits there,
yeah.
but its future is undecided.
Okay, when are the potholes going to be fixed on this road? I live down there, I can't sleep at night. My house vibrates.
Unfortunately,
Why don't you all get onto the main roads?
Unfortunately, that's a main road's
No,
responsibility.
you all have to ring them up. Same time. Get the CEO onto it.
We will advocate to Main Road to...
It's affecting my
repairs.
lifestyle.
Okay, we will...
And if you want to chop trees down, there's a huge big tree down opposite the ambulance base there. Have you seen that big tree that fell down?
It's been there for a while.
Why don't you chop that up and throw it away? What do you want to chop down good trees for?
Thanks, Robert. Unless you've got a question?
Would you consider putting basketball hoops on those marri trees?
No,
Why not?
because it doesn't make sense.
Play bush basketball.
Thanks, Robert. Thank you. Further questions?
Hello, councillors. My name is Brendan Davies. My address is 39 Devon Street, Muchea. My question relates to the marri trees in Muchea. I have lived in Muchea for 10 years and I'm part of the future generation that you have talked about. My generation is being taught the importance of working together and caring for the environment. It makes me sad that the council is going to cut down the trees. When you look back on what you have done in your life, would you rather know that you have saved the marri trees or that you have demolished them? My question is, can you please save the trees?
Thank you, Brendan. I'm pretty sure the response is going to be very similar to what I read out, but we'll give you the courtesy of the same response. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brendan, for your question.
John Nagle, 153 Stevens Road, Bindon. Mr President, at the forum night last week, Lee Martin asked a question in regard to the Aboriginal rights, and you said you'd take it on notice. I notice there's nothing in the agenda to respond to that.
No, but we have discussed it. We are seeking.
It's still part of the same month, so next month.
It'll go to next month, but we are looking at obtaining further information and briefing on, I guess, what you would call a subject matter expert on that, and whether we can have that subject matter expert brief council and brief the community is what we're working on at the moment. So we aim to get a proper response back to Mr Martin, but we're just trying to find that proper subject expert.
Okay.
Because it's quite complicated.
I realise.
We want to make sure that we're giving the correct information out. So we also feel that we need that information, but the community need it. So we need to work out a way of how we can give it that information to everyone at the same time.
Yeah,
so,
I understand that, but the horse is bolted on the 1st of July. If you're going to go to the next council meeting, the horse is bolted, you're going to shut the gate.
No, because why the 1st of July?
Well, that's when
I know.
That's when it goes to Parliament, and it's going to be.
Maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
Maybe. We'll see.
Second one, then, Mr. President. Couple of questions, not questions, information. Has the mountain bike track come to a halt on work up there, or what's the story with that?
Work had been stopped temporarily, but work will be starting again very shortly.
So that was through not having a clearing permit, was it?
Yes.
Well, how can you do this one down at Muchea if you got the one up here? You had to stop here.
We have contacted DWER and we don't require a clearing permit.
Well, how do you have to require one up here?
We don't require one. We've been to DWER, and so we don't require a clearing permit for the mountain bike park what's proposed. We had to follow it through, and we did, and it's deemed that we don't need one.
Okay, so you're exempt.
So
I'll refer to the CEO.
Can I just clarify? The works that have already been done has been cleared with DEWA. We've now stalled because we do want to have a revegetation plan with them, which we've submitted to them, to revegetate alternative areas where we're going to do the additional tracks. So the ones that have already been constructed, we have got approval from DEWA that we are in the clear there. The ones that we are still to construct and the other ones that are still from this first stage are dependent on our clearing permit, including our revegetation plan that we have already submitted. We are just waiting for feedback from them.
So you do have to get a permit, or you have to
get... for some of them, but the ones that have already been constructed are okay. Because they're mainly in the grazing area on the opposite side of the hill. And already cleared area.
Have you been up there and had a look at it? I'm
yes,
sorry.
I've been there many times.
Yeah, so have I. I've been up there and we spent hours up there looking at it. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Chris Fawley, Secretary of the Bindun Museum. I'm representing the Brockman Centre User Group this evening. Now, is item TS01 still on the agenda?
No, so just to give you advice, we've withdrawn that item on the agenda for further discussion.
Excellent.
Council.
I need to have a conversation with you on that, if that's all right.
That'll be part of the workshopping on options.
Lovely, thank you.
Thank you. Any further public questions? If there are no public questions, I'll move on to item 5, presentations, petitions and deputations. There are nil. Item 6, approved leave of absence. Councillors, are there any requests for leave of absence? Thank you. Item 7, confirmation of minutes. Ordinary Council meeting of the 17th of May. I have an officer's recommendation. I'll wait for the people to leave. Okay, so Item 7, confirmation of minutes, Ordinary Council meeting 17th of May 2023. Can I have the officer's recommendation that the minutes be confirmed? Can I have a mover for the recommendation? Councillor Campbell. Councillor Angus is the seconder. Council, is anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? If there's no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Panic, I've done things in order. Item 8, announcement from the presiding member. There's a couple today. So I just want to highlight celebrating 49 years of service for Max Brown. I'll read this out. So at the Chittering Bushfire Advisory Committee held 13th of June 2023, Max Brown was honoured for an incredible 49 years of dedicated service as a volunteer member, of which 21 years was as a fire control officer of Lower Chittering Volunteer Bush Fire Brigade. Whilst Max is stepping down as Shire appointed fire control officer, he continued to serve and protect the community as firefighter, imparting invaluable experience in mentoring the Shire's next generation of firefighters and fire control officers. As a life member of the brigade, Max is part of a small group including Phil Beals, Robert Muchea, Hartley Reid, Ian Hollick, Steve Brown, Theo Burgess and Perry Reid. The Shire and Council thank Max and his family for his remarkable legacy of service to our community. Next item is congratulations to our 2 Shire OAMs. So in the 2023 King's Birthday Honours for Australia was announced on the 11th of June and honours good work done by citizens. 2 of our residents received the Medal of Australia Order, OAM, this year. So they were Craig Spencer for his service to the community through a range of organisations and Mary Day for service to Polo Cross. Congratulations both to Craig and Mary. The Shire is proud in what you've achieved and I'd like to thank you for your service to the community. Third item here is Volunteer Bush Fire Brigade recognition event at Lower Chittering. It was hosted by the Shire of Chittering on Saturday the 17th of June. It was an opportunity to thank our volunteers who give up their time to protect the community and across our five fire stations across the Shire. Whilst I could not attend, I understand the event was well attended and a good time was had by all. Also, the following long service medals were awarded to the volunteers at the event. So Lachlan Evans for 5 years service, Shelley Panel for 10 years service and William Lee Gordon Cater for 15 years service. Gordon also received the Chief Award for outstanding service, so congratulations to them. Just make a note that the Chittering Chamber of Commerce community event will be held on Thursday, tomorrow, the 22nd of June. The CEO, the Shire CEO Melinda Prinsloo will give an update on current and future projects. Mr Jake Whistler, the Executive Manager of Development Service, will discuss what business can and cannot be done on various blocks of land and the approvals that are required, which will be very useful. And Mr Warren Pearce from the Association of Mining and Exploration Company CEOs will discuss growth of exploration in the region and what it means for the Chittering region. So I think there'll be some valuable information there, and also we'll get an opportunity to meet the new Gin Police Station officer in charge, Sergeant June Surfwaite. The Bindoon Farmers Market is also coming up on Sunday the 25th of June at Queen Park, and I encourage you all to support local businesses. Item 9, reports. Development Services, DSO 1, Extractive Industries Local Law 2023. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to suspend, I think, remember? Postpone the adoption of the draft Shire Chittering Extractive Law until June 2024, when further review of significant changes to the current extractive industry local law has been conducted and a complementing local plan policy has been developed. Councillors, that is the officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Hughes, thank you. Second, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Hughes.
I think it's just a logical step to wait until all the available information is ready to make a more informed decision about it.
Councillor Campbell.
Nothing further to add.
Councillors, anyone speaking against? Anyone wants to speak for?
Thanks, Mr. President. I think just to highlight the fact that in planning areas, the issue of unintended consequences is probably one of the biggest that we need to consider, and I think by delaying the acceptance, the adoption of the new law, it gives our officers much more time to go into the possible unintended consequences so that we protect the Shire community from that as best we can.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillors, no one speaking against, so I'll declare the officer's recommendation carried 7-0. Thank you. Next item of business, DS02, proposed scheme amendment number 71, rezoning of lots 202 to 203 Wandena Road, Muchea, and lots 204 to 205 Great Northern Highway, Muchea, from agricultural resource zone to general industry and light industry zone. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to approve the rezoning according to that lengthy officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Campbell. Seconder, please. Councillor Ross. Councillor Campbell.
Can I add the, can I add the advice note now and talk for it?
Yes.
So there's I think Danae's got a copy there. So it's just request the proponent for scheme amendment 71 lobby the state government and federal government for the provisions of greater essential services to the Muchea Industrial Park, including the connection of reticulation gas and reticulated sewage. So while I'd like to bring this in, or this advice is, if I compare ourselves to our neighbours down the road, the likes of Bullsbrook Industrial Park, they have a bit more essential services. I believe we need to attract more industry into the Muchea Industrial Park, and hopefully with the developer providing some kind of lobbying or highlighting to federal and state government that this could bring that kind of services to the region, to the Muchea Industrial Park.
Yeah, have to move also. We do, okay. Yep. Okay, Councillor Campbell, you're the mover of that amendment,
yep,
which is an advice note. Can I have a seconder for that advice note, please? Councillor Ross, thank you. Right, Councillor Campbell, I think you all covered it.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Ross.
No, it makes sense. Thanks, Mr. President.
Councillors, anyone speaking against the amendment?
I'm not speaking against it, Mr. President, but I'd like to mention that I think the gas might be going out of fashion. It'll be electrification more than anything in the future.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillors, no one speaking against the amendment, I'll declare carried 7-0. Thank you. Councillor Campbell, it's still yours.
Nothing further to add, thank you.
Councillor Ross. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Sorry, the substantive motion with the amendment. Anyone speaking against? Because there was an amendment, I put it to the vote, I suppose I will, just to be...
Still don't, so just declare this.
I can declare it, even though there's an amendment.
Yeah, that was already...
Yeah, okay. All right, if there's no one speaking against it, I'll declare the substantive motion with the amendment 7-0. Technical services, TS01 has been withdrawn. Containers for Change program. Yeah, so council, the TSO01 Containers for Change has been withdrawn to allow council to workshop a number of other proposals that have come to light since we went out for expressions of interest. So that we can make the most informed decision, we'll hold those workshops before presenting the item back to council. TSO202, Adoption of Strategic Waste Management Plan 2023 to 2033. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to adopt the management plan, to receive the assessment analysis supporting report, and note that the summary of actions and costs of council's future budget considerations. That is the officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover for that, please? Councillor Curtis, thank you. Seconder, please. I'm happy to second that. Councillor King. Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, Mr. President, adopt the officer's recommendation, and what I've got, the notes I've taken out of the report, which is I believe that we could have done what the consultants have done, what they've suggested. We could have. I think it's just general knowledge of what needs to be done to get the reduction of waste down in the Shire. Everyone knows, everyone doesn't know about what goes in what bin. People still confused after all these years of education, so the education that is provided by the contractor doesn't seem to be working. So either they have to get their act together, or we're going to take it on. The report didn't say anything about bin size reductions or the collection frequencies. All these sort of things they didn't mention in the report, and that's why. And also the transfer station design, they reckon we should have consultants to do that. Those designs I've seen online from other shires, their setup of transfer stations, so we could save a lot of money in future consultancy work on the waste management. Myself, reading that report, and there's quite a few things there that's in this that's not in the report that I could have come up with if I was given the opportunity to do this report myself. I could have saved the council $30,000.
Councillor Curtis, do you have an amendment?
And I've got an amendment to go on with this, and my amendment is that council instruct the Chief Executive Officer to convene a workshop with council to provide an opportunity for councillors to engage and participate in drafting terms of reference for a council member advisory group on waste management. And I think we can get all this.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Can I have a seconder for the amendment, please? I'll second it.
Excuse me.
Just 1 minute. Get this. I'm sorry, I'm having a mental blank. Yeah, I know. Okay. You can talk to your formally talk to your amendment at the moment. So I know you've spoken, but you can talk. I understand the intent of the amendment, but I guess it's the intent of the officer's recommendation that council will have to consider how it will proceed with its waste management facilities, and I would expect that within that process there will be workshops anyway. So we can add an amendment to do a workshop, but we would have been doing a workshop anyway as part of the ongoing review of the report summary and actions. So we can add it in there. It doesn't change the substantial intent of the officer's recommendation. So I'll support it on that basis. Councillors, anyone speaking against the amendment? No one speaking against the amendment. I can declare your amendment carried 7-0. Councillor Curtis, any other amendments on this one?
No more, Mr. President, no more amendments, but I'd like to just say that this committee or this advisory group is very important, otherwise we're going to be left. It hasn't worked since I've been on council about reduction of waste, and I think it would be a good idea to have a committee, because we have a committee on fire, we have a committee on numerous other items, or what's the word, projects or whatever, and the most important thing in the Shire is the waste, which is going to cost us a fortune in a few years' time if the state government have their way of imposing levies and that. So we've got to get our act together and get this committee up and running.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. I was the seconder, so I'll talk to the item. Look, I think the report highlights what we've known to be, in part, a long-standing issue, and that is the Bindoon tip is running very short of capacity, and we do need to work through what we do with it, whether we turn it into a transfer station, whether we rehabilitate it. So one of the recommendations of the report is to undertake a closure plan to determine the cost for closure, because the cost of closures could be $1 to $2 million. So it's important, this plan or this report does highlight those issues and propose actions that we need to take forward. And I think you now couple that with the working group, advisory group, then I think those matters will have to be considered seriously. But I support the officer's recommendation and the amendment. Councillors, anyone wish to speak to Councillor Ross?
Thanks, Mr. President. I'd also like to propose to move an amendment to formally review and update the plan after 5 years. To ensure ongoing compliance with legislation changes and current best practice in the industry.
Can you make that a bit bigger today? Thank you. I don't need them for long distance, but thank you, Councillor Ross. Can I have a seconder for that amendment, please? Councillor Angus. Councillor Ross, can you speak?
Thanks, Mr. President. This is probably something that officers would undertake anyway, but I'm especially mindful that this is an area where there's fast movement, like legislation keeps being amended, added, whatever, and also that the handling of waste keeps, what is good practice, acceptable practice, etc., keeps changing. So it's really just a way to ensure that we don't just let it sit for 10 years. We actually guarantee through a motion.
I think
that there is
Councillor
a
Ross, it's got to be assessed 8 years, but every 8 years.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Angus?
Yeah, only to add that in the information we've got here, the actions need to be achieved between 2023 and 2033. So as Councillor Ross says, it's 10 years. We don't want to get to the end of the 10 years and find that what we were doing didn't work. So yeah, I agree that we would need to review it along the way.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillors? Anyone speaking against the amendment? If no one's speaking to the amendment, you have right of reply, Councillor Ross, if you want.
All good, thank you.
No one speaking against the amendment, I'll declare carried 7-0. Thank you. Councillor Ross, anything further? Councillors, anyone else wish to speak to the substantive motion? Councillors, no one speaking against the substantive motion, I'll declare carried 7-0. Next item of business, the CS01 list of accounts paid for the period ending 30th of April 2023. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to endorse the list of accounts. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Ross, sorry, my head's going spinning now. Seconder, please. Councillor Angus, that sounds. Councillor Ross.
Little to say, Mr. President. This is a routine report. We all have the opportunity to review it prior to the meeting and question anything that we might want to follow up. I'm very happy to support the work that's been done to produce this.
Councillor Angus.
Nothing other than these were the outstanding reports from the previous meeting, so I'm happy to have received them and I have no questions.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Anyone wish to speak for? Councillor Ross, don't need a right of reply. If there's no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Thank you. Next item of business is CS02 multi-financial report for the period ending 30th of April. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to receive the multi-financial report, which is from the previous period. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Campbell. And Councillor Angus was the seconder. Councillor Campbell.
It's just a formality, last month's financial report. Nothing untoward.
Councillor Angus.
As before.
Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? No one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Thank you. Next item is CS03, list of accounts paid for the period ending 31st of May 2023. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to endorse the list of accounts. Can I have a mover and seconder for this, please? Councillor Campbell. Seconder, I'll second that. Councillor Campbell.
I just have one question, if I may. We have advertising fee for seeking employment. Is it cheaper to do our own in-house advertising, or is it better to go out to a employment agency?
I'll refer that to the Chief Executive
Sorry,
Officer.
through the Chair, sorry.
Thank you. We have got specific prescriptions as to where we should be advertising which levels of positions. For us generally to reach a broader audience, we try to get onto Seek, which is the cheapest open advertising area. We publish very heavily onto our local and neighbouring Facebook pages as well to try and attract local skills.
Thanks. Otherwise, nothing further to add. Thank you.
I've got nothing to add. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Anyone want to make comment or speak for the officer's recommendation? No right of reply required. Issue. I'll declare, in the absence of any speaking against, I'll declare carried 7-0. Next item of business, CS04 monthly financial report for the period ending 31st of May 2023. Councillors, you've got an officer's recommendation to receive this financial report. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Curtis, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Ross. Councillor Curtis.
Mr. President, I accept the officer's recommendation for the monthly report. Nothing there to add.
Councillor Ross. Thank you. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Anyone wish to speak for? In the absence of anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Okay, CSO5, adoption of the 2023-2024 annual budget. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation and request to adopt the 2023-2024 draft budget as presented in the officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Ross. Just 1 minute. Seconder, please. Councillor Hughes. Councillor Nick. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. The adoption of the budget is one of the most important decisions that comes before Council in any year. And because of its importance, it has an impact on everyone in the Shire. We spend quite a lot of time looking through draft documents, looking through the planning documents that sit behind it, like the Strategic Community Plan, Long-Term Financial Plan and so on. We are in a growing Shire, which puts pressures on us that we don't share with some of our neighbours, particularly further, more remote shires. And we also, I think, have all been here on council long enough to know that no matter what we personally, from our dealings with the community, might see as priorities, none of us ever gets what we would have as a perfect budget put in front of us. A budget, by its definition, is the best use we believe we can make of the Shire's resources, knowing we can't do everything and that we have to have a planned, carefully laid out approach to what we're going to do. So none of us would sit here and say, this is exactly what I wanted. We'll all have had things that we wish were a bit different, but we must negotiate with each other and come up with what we believe is best. And that's what we've done. And I guess the other important thing about a budget, which is why we have it at the June meeting, if it's at all possible, is that it's basically the work program for the year. What goes into the budget is actually what we intend to have done in this 12-month period that it applies to. So it's important if we're able to adopt the budget before 1 July, which is when it formally begins to roll out. So I'm wanting to assure the community that a lot of work by officers and review work by councillors has gone into the preparation of this, and I'm quite happy to support what we have in front of us.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Hughes.
I think that covered everything that I would have said. Just to add that we have had a number of workshops and good discussions around all of the content that's in the budget, and I'm very happy with what's proposed from our workshops and where we're at now with it.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillors, anyone wish to speak for or against the budget?
President, I'd speak against the officer's recommendation.
No, you're just doing an amendment, Councillor Curtis. You're speaking for, but with an amendment. So, Councillor Curtis, your amendment. One we prepared earlier. Again, we might have a bit bigger today. Sorry, it's gone small again.
Oh,
My amendment, first, number 15, the council revise the tourism budget and adopt a reduction of 40,000.
Just 1 minute.
Can I speak to these amendments?
One at a time, Councillor. We just got to get the right order. Just 1 minute. We can do one at a time. Sorry. I'm confused now. Sorry. Got myself confused.
Mr President, can I put the amendment number 2?
So,
Change the amendment number 2.
So Councillor Curtis, you can raise one amendment at a time. So let's raise one amendment. I'm getting myself confused here today, I don't know why. Let's raise one amendment. Which amendment do you want to raise first?
Well,
that one?
number 2, yeah.
Okay, number 2. We'll deal with that one. So the other one we're not dealing with at the moment.
Do you want me to read it out?
No, I'll read it out. That the officer's recommendation be amended at point 2 as follows: that council pursuant to section 6.32, 6.34 and 6.35 of the Local Government Act 1995 impose a 0% rate in the dollar increase as follows: where the general rate is to apply for all rateable properties with a gross rental valuations, a rate in the dollar of 0.111150 with a minimum rate of $1,150 be imposed, and where the general rate is to apply for all rateable properties with an unimproved valuations, a rate in the dollar value of 0.005903 with a minimum rate of $1,100 to be imposed. Part C is that the statutory budget be amended and rebalanced to reflect this change. That is the amendment. Councillor Curtis, I assume you're the mover of your amendment. And let me just get my... Councillors, you have a mover. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Curtis, in the absence of a seconder, the amendment lapses. Do you have another amendment, Councillor Curtis?
This amendment is to number 15.
Thank you.
15, the council...
So allow me to read it out, if you don't mind.
Sorry?
I'll read it out for you, so it helps me. That council, that the officer's recommendation be amended to include point 15 as follows: that council revise the tourism budget and adopt a reduction of $40,000, and that the projects intended to be actioned by these consultants be removed from the annual operating budget for 2023-2024, that the statutory budget be amended and then rebalanced to reflect this change. Councillor Curtis, you're the mover of your amendment. Councillors, can I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Curtis, this also lapses through lack of a seconder.
The other amendment, would you like to read it out, Mr President?
I'll read it out for you. Is amendment, is it number 15 as well?
Well, it's to add a point 15 to the officer recommendation.
So to add a point to, okay, sorry, I'm not sure which one I'm reading. Is it that one I'm reading?
Nothing more. 15 you can't pass it, we'll change it to 16 to 5.
Okay. So that the officer's recommendation be amended to include point 16 as follows, I guess. 15 as follows. That council approve that the Lower Chittering Community Centre budget allocation for detailed architectural planning of $400,000 be removed from the budget, from the draft budget, and that the project be deferred for 1 year with funding to be considered for the 2024-2025 budget, that the statutory budget be amended and balanced to reflect this change. Councillor Curtis, you are the mover. Can I have a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Curtis, your amendment lapses for want of a seconder. Councillor Curtis, another amendment?
One more amendment, Mr. President. It's up there.
Okay, the amendment, I'll read that for you. That the amendment, that the officer's recommendation be amended to include point 15 as follows, that council remove the provision of 61,500 for dog exercise area investigation implementation from the draft budget, that the statutory budget be amended and rebalanced to reflect this change. Councillor Curtis, you are the mover.
Can I speak to that motion?
I need a seconder first. I'm happy to second this for Councillor. Sorry, no, missed. No. Councillor Dewar.
Mr. President.
Councillor Dewar, he was ahead of me. Councillor Curtis, you can speak to your amendment now.
This amendment for these dogs, in these tough times, you know, everyone's under increases in rates, interest rates, government rates. Now it's council rates are going to be increased, and we want a dog exercise area. It's crazy. I think we should delete the whole thing. That's all I've got to say on the dog exercise area.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Dewar.
Yeah, I concur with my illustrious colleagues' comments here. I just think $61,000 for people to walk their, pampered pooch around or whatever they do seems a bit excessive. I've got a couple of dogs. I do like dogs, but I don't need, the ratepayers to shell out all that hard-won money. So I will be, agreeing with my colleague here with that one.
Thank you, Councillor Dewar. Councillors, anyone wish to speak against the amendment? I do. I'll sneak that one in. Councillor Ross, let me talk first. All right, I'm going to refer to the CEO here because my understanding is that part of the budget is to go and investigate what dog exercise area facilities are required, which part of the Shire would they be in, what would they constitute, what would they cost. So without doing that work, which is budgeted for, you can't, council is in no position to even consider what a dog exercise area would actually be. So that's what was intended as the budget. Is that my understanding is correct?
There's a provision for the investigation as well as a possible provision for them erecting a small area where dogs can be let off the leash, where the community can gather with their dogs and socialise. So
an item would come back to council after that work was done, and then council would be able to make a decision whether they proceed or not with any exercise park. So that's the intent. That's all. I just wanted to be clear that's what it covers. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. I agree that the dollar value seems outrageous. Pardon me, but on the costings that we've received to support this item, whether we like it or not, to fence a park or a section of a park to provide for an off-the-leash freedom for dogs actually starts to cost a lot of money. So we live in a society where increasingly people have dogs, particularly in rural areas, that are not necessarily safe when they're off a lead. What we normally do in our farmers markets and other parks and things like that is say dogs must be on a lead in the hands of an adult. What we're trying to provide for here is to actually create a provision where dogs can be off the lead, and so even if they're not the friendliest in the world, they are in a confined space, a designated space, and so public safety is preserved as best possible. So I don't like the dollar value either, but I believe we we need to make a provision for our community, because if we don't, they'll simply be letting dogs off the lead anywhere, as they do in Edmund Place Reserve now. So I think we need to live with it, whether it looks good or not.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll make a personal explanation, if I may. The intent, as discussed by the Chief Executive Officer, is to undertake an investigation to determine the needs base, and also where it would be located and what it would cost, not to build it at this point. So that item would then come back to council, and the council would then vote on that then. So we just got to be cognizant of the fact that that's the intent of what the budget allocation's for, whether we like the amount or not.
If I could just also clarify that money there is both inclusive of the investigation and if council then approves the go-ahead of the construction.
And just to add further that if those costings come back at 100 or 200,000, then clearly the budget can't cover it. Yes. So councillors, do you want to suspend the standing orders for talking once, and I've forgotten which one that is, which means I have to find out what that one is. Let me find out what item number that is. Now you're testing me. Standing orders, where was that? New standing orders. Oh, you're having. Speak once. Which one's that one? 1 minute. We've got to find the right. I've got a feeling it's 8 point something. Members to indicate intention. Speaking twice, 8.9. Let me just try that one. And I've got no page numbers on mine, that's not handy. 8.9. It's to suspend standing orders at 8.9. I think we'll do it. That means we're able to speak more than once.
I would have liked to speak once.
So I move that procedural motion that council suspends standing order 8.9. I'm the mover. Can I have a seconder for the suspension of that standing order? Councillor Curtis. Just 1 minute. I think we could just have some quick discussion around this so it's quite clear what the intent of the budget allocations for before we consider the amendment. Councillors, can I put that to a vote? I don't think I need to. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour to suspend that singular standing order? Yep. Harry, I'm sorry, I'm missing. Is that 7? 6. 6. 6-1. Councillor Angus voted against. All right, councillors, you can speak. But are other standing orders? So, my concern with some of the commentary is perhaps around misinformation or misunderstanding of what the $60,000 was meant to cover. It was not. And the process involved in assessing whether there is actually a need for a dog park, exercise area, and the intent, as I tried to explain earlier, is to undertake a needs analysis and then look at where this facility may be built and what are the requirements for the structural building of this facility, whether it needs to be fully fenced, etc., and how much it will cost before council could even possibly make a decision. And as the Chief Executive Officer, I think, pointed out, that $60,000, $61,500 did include the cost to do that investigation and build the facility, but we're only proceeding on the investigative side of it. And the item will come back to council to make a decision. Our role as council is to provide service to the community. If there are needs, that we need to assess those needs. And then if we can afford it, then council gives you an opportunity to put it forward.
Mr. President, it's not a service. Dogs, that's their responsibility of the owner to exercise their dog. And if they can't exercise their dog on a 5-acre property, which is most of those properties down at Muchea, which is where the dog exercise area is going to be. Obviously, there's already one up in Bindoon, so...
No, there's not one in Bindoon, Councillor.
Edmund Place. Well, I've been told by the resident that they take their dog, they're allowed to let the dog off the release.
There's a lot of confusion. There's clearly confusion in the community of where they can let their dog off, and part of this exercise is also to understand where the needs are and where people are currently exercising their dogs.
Okay,
as well. So,
beside the point, it's no exercise area. Well, it's ridiculous that we spend 61,000 on dogs. We can't, we've got more important things to do than looking after dogs.
and again, we're not spending $61,000 up front. We're spending
well,
some money to...
Once we get into it, that's where it'll end up being, 61,000. Won't it?
Got no clue. Councillor Hughes.
Just to point out that a dog exercise area is also like a meeting place for like-minded people that can then also, they can talk and meet other of their neighbours. It's not necessarily entirely about the dogs, it's about the people as well.
Well, Kylie, I think, people walking their dog on a leash can interact with each other, can't they? It doesn't need to be, and that'll be pretty dangerous if dogs are all let to roam around on an oval and they could go and kill a small dog or bite a child that's in that area, so it's more dangerous. Who's going to be responsible? The CEO.
This proposes the opposite of that though, to have them removed from areas where people got their children running free, to put the dogs in their own area.
I got on the Shire nearly 2 years ago in October with a view to make some important decisions that benefit most parts of the Shire. Spending $61,500 on a plan and or to build a doggy park doesn't seem very essential. I mean, I think of Tea Tree Road, that's a shocking road. I think of other gravel roads, the poor roads. Why don't we focus on doing the main things, the most important things, getting them done first, allocating resources there, rather than all this warm, fuzzy stuff that, to me, is not that important and not that significant. Why are we focused on too many of these issues?
Councillor Jewett, Councillor Ross.
I think the difficulty is not everyone lives on a large block. We have town sites in the Shire, so there are people who are on quite small blocks and who therefore might need an area where they can let their dog off the lead to run. But as I said before, we now have a whole lot of dogs that have a potential danger to them, so they need a confined space. The figures we were sent to support the 61.5 that's in the budget are almost all about construction of a dog park with a $1,000 allocation to community consultation. So most of the investigation is more about where, if we decide to go ahead, when, as the President mentioned, it does come back to Council for a decision about do we actually do this and where does it happen. But it's an expensive issue. I think we need to acknowledge that people have dogs and let them off now, which, as Councillor Curtis says, has been done in Edmonds Reserve for years, for all the time I've been in the Shire, but probably shouldn't have been. So while we provide nothing, perhaps we carry a liability, a risk that is not a good one to carry.
Thank you. Councillor Ross.
Can I reply?
You can. It's been more than one.
Again, we've got gravel roads in the Shire. It's 2023, and I don't think we should have gravel roads in the Shire. I mean, surely good, safe, sealed roads are far more important than spending money on dog exercise parks. Surely.
Thank you, Councillor Jewett. Councillors, are we all satisfied we've had a fair say? Councillor Angus. So.
I've got to admit, I was surprised when I saw that living in a rural area we would need a dog exercise park. We don't live in a concrete jungle in the middle of Perth. I understand the community getting together, but we have opportunities to do that anyway. As far as being liable for people being injured if the dogs are let off somewhere else. Well, we're going to be liable if dogs decide to have a fight or bite someone inside a fence, the same as outside a fence. So I would be happy to see it say the investigation part. I wouldn't have a problem with that at all, and we'd probably find that we didn't necessarily need to spend the money, but I'm not happy to have the implementation in there at the same time.
Can I ask Jake if he knows anything about this dog law that allows, is that your department, about dogs? Yeah. Where can they get roam free in the Shire?
Roam free?
Roam free.
So the previous local law that we had that controls dogs designated Edmonds Place as an off-lead dog exercise area. Probably isn't practical because there's no fence there. But the new local law actually has no designated off-lead dog exercise areas. So that's what this investigation would look into.
Dogs can roam free down the beach and they're not fenced off, can they?
Well, we're not having beaches.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They don't have to be fenced off dog exercise areas, do they?
But that's only a designated dog beach.
Designated dog beaches, it's not every dog beach.
Cottesloe is a designated dog beach, the rest of Cottesloe isn't.
So to be clear, this came before council, not this, but I mean the topic was there were people in the Shire walking their dog off lead and were being approached by the ranger for breaking local laws. So there is no place within Chittering Shire to legally walk your dog off a lead. So we get rid of this, people are going to get fined for walking their dogs off a lead, and we're going to have more people coming and creating a stink. So it's unfortunately it's a lot of money, but we've got to be able to provide facilities for people to use the area to walk their dog off a lead.
What's more important, safe roads or dog parks?
We do roads, we've got to do a bit of everything. So we have sports centres, we have roads, we've got to, as Councillor Ross said, we've got to pick and choose, and we can't make everyone happy. But yeah, we've allowed for in the budget, I think we should proceed with them.
And remember, we're proceeding with the investigation, we're not proceeding with the construction of it. So whether or not it helps to adding an advice note, that gives you some level of comfort that we're committed to doing the investigation. Would that appease some of the concern from Councillor Curtis and Councillor Dewey?
I don't think we should even go down this route to find out.
All right, councillors, I think we've had enough debate on this. I move to resume standing orders. All those in favour? Can I have a seconder first? Sorry, I'm one ahead of myself. Yep. Councillor Ross is the seconder. All those in favour? 7-0, thank you. So that was King, Councillor Ross, seconder. Okay, Councillor Curtis, we're back with your amendment.
I've lost track.
I think we've just got to vote on it.
Yes, so Councillor, who have we got next? Councillor Hughes to speak, Councillor Campbell and Councillor Angus on the amendment if they wish to.
I think we covered it in our open discussion previous.
Thank you. Right, with that all being said, Councillor Curtis, you have right of reply on your amendment.
Mr. President, we don't need this dog exercise area. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillors, I'll put the amendment as stated up above. That council remove the provision of 161,500 for dog exercise area, and that the statutory budget be amended. So that is the amendment. Councillors, I'll put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? 3 against, 4. So, Councillor Curtis, anything further?
No, Mr. President.
Thank you. Councillors, So, Councillor Angus hasn't spoken to the substantive, Councillor Campbell, Councillor Dewar and myself. So, Councillor Angus, do you want to speak to the budget?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I am aware that we've had a lot of discussion involved in the budget. Thank you to the staff for all the hard work you've put in. Having been on council for 7 years, it's really nice to see the last couple of years that we seem to be moving forward. So I think for us to continue to do that, we need to have an increase of some description in the budget in rates to keep up with that progress. I think if we were to go back and have 0% rate increase, although it would help a lot of people who are doing it really tough, it would put us back to where we were a few years ago with our facilities falling into disrepair, no plan for maintaining equipment and no progress. So thank you for the work involved in the budget. And that's it.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillor Campbell.
I think Councillor Angus stole my wording, word for word, so
Sorry.
pretty much, yeah, nothing further to add.
Councillor Dewar.
Nothing to add.
Okay, I'll speak to the budget. My view is this is a responsible budget. It's seeing a 3% increase in the rate in the dollar when inflation is running at 7% at the moment. So what it shows is that through careful consideration of the budget, we've been able to largely negate, and through increases in property, in rateable properties, we've been able to negate a lot of the majority of the rate increase, which is burdening the community. And the 3% is in line with what we have in our long-term financial plan, and is completely in line with what we communicated to the community last year when we had a much higher rate rise. So it's consistent, it's responsible, and it provides the services that are necessary and that are prioritised in according. So we've come a long way to go to a 0% rate rise, as Councillor Angus mentioned, is going backwards. We simply can't, because we'll be behind inflation of 7%. So we have to, 3% is a very marginal increase considering the inflation. So it is responsible in my view, and it helps us in the future. And so we must plan for the future, and this budget sets us up at least for the 1 year and coming forward in future years. So I support the budget, and I do thank the staff for their effort that have done the work on the budget. Right, that's me said. Councillor Ross, you were the mover. Right, a reply?
I think it's all been said. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Okay, councillors, I'll put the substantive motion to the vote. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried 7, against? 6. 1. My apologies, I can't count. 6-1. Thank you, councillors. CO 02-06-23 Occupational Safety and Health Statistic Report, May 2023. We have an officer's recommendation, and I'm happy to move that one. And can I have a seconder for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Ross, thank you. Right. I just had a question. 1 minute, I just have to find my question. Sorry, 1 minute. Right, apologies in advance. 2 near misses reported.
Yes.
One was a dog bite. I wanted to ask about the dog bite, thank you. And the other one was insect bite. So just a question on the dog bite. please explain. Dog bite, volunteer firefighter dog bite. Is that attending a fire, or how did that occur?
Wasn't it the doggy park, was it?
Thank you, Councillor Dewar.
Sorry, I was
we don't have a dog park.
I'll probably have to get back to you on that one. Don't have the information available.
Okay, sorry. I thought you would. Yeah, I thought it'd be a sort of an interesting story to be told. All right, thank you. That was the only questions I wanted to ask. And look, I think it's good that you have a separate section under the report that gives some detail around the near misses, but perhaps maybe a little bit more detail on those would save me having to ask a question, particularly on something like a dog bite.
What about the insect bite? Where was that? Where did that take place?
Councillor Dewar, it's not your turn to talk. Thank you, Councillor Dewar. You'll get your chance in a minute. All right, I'm finished. Councillor Ross, you seconded.
Yes, just a comment that may or may not be the answer to the question you just asked, but certainly a year or so back there was a very ugly incident where one of our firefighters from Muchea was attacked on the neck by a dog, just visiting a home. And that's the sort of thing our fireys do. They do inspections and so on. So sadly, it's an inherent danger that you can only do so much protection for. And this was unforeseen, like no sense of attack impending. So things do happen that are very hard to avoid.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Well put. Councillors?
Yeah, could I get some more detail on an insect bite, please?
Councillor Dewar, I'll refer to the CEO and we'll get some.
I can give you that detail.
We'll provide that detail.
Probably 1,000, 1,500 words or something.
Thank you, Councillor Dewar. Councillors, anyone else speaking to the? Is anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation to receive the occupational health and safety report statistics? If no one speaking against it, I'll declare carried 7-0. Next item of business is CEO 02, Bindoon Mountain Bike Park Advisory Group. We have the officer's recommendation there. If you go to the other page, it's got the names in it.
Number 3.
I thought you were going to put them in.
Yes. We put them in the other one.
We might make just a quick amendment to the officer's recommendation before we move it. I seek a mover. Point 3, that councillor appoints Councillor Curtis as delegate and Councillor Campbell.
Sorry, Campbell first and Curtis.
Sorry, Campbell first. Councillor Campbell and Councillor Curtis. My apologies.
Councillor Proxy, that's me.
Councillor Curtis.
Proxy for everything.
All right, councillors, you have the officer's recommendation. Let me just check the Councillor Mark. Okay, councillors, you have the officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation, please? Councillor Ross, thank you. Seconder, please. Councillor Campbell. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. We've done some work on this by having the opportunity to review these terms of reference before they've come back to us this evening. It's important that we do have this advisory group because this is a new facility. We need it to be as successful for the community as it possibly can. So I think the terms of reference and the membership composition that are in the officer recommendation should be satisfactory to achieve what's needed.
Thank you. Councillor Ross, Councillor Campbell.
I suppose just to highlight this, so there's 2 reference group. One will be for the reference group now that's going to be implementing the trails and engaging 3 chilies and all the rest. This is once it's completed, how we move forward and develop the whole mountain bike park area and making it a success of it. So nothing further to add. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillors, anyone wish to speak against the officer's recommendation? Anyone speak for the officer's recommendation? Right. Councillor Ross, right of reply?
All said, thank you.
Councillors, no one speaking against the officer's recommendation. I'll declare carried without debate 7-0. Next item of business is CEO 03, Corporate Business Plan 2023-2024, 2023 to 2027, if you want a better word. Councillors, can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Hughes. Seconder, please. Councillor Angus. Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, much along the same feedback as the annual budget. This now aligns really well with what's in the budget to provide us with information to know in the short, medium and long term whether or not what we're proposing is financially responsible, and I'm very pleased with where this is at and its alignment to the budget.
Councillor Hughes, thank you. Councillor Angus.
Yes, just thank you again to the staff for putting this together. I think it's very colourful, easy for community to read. I think it does put on paper just what our plan is for the future, shows us moving ahead and how we can manage to get things done, keeping in mind that it is a plan and things don't always go to plan, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillors. Councillor Curtis.
Yeah, I support the officer's recommendation. Just like to add, these long-term financial plans, it's like we've come up against the economic crisis at the moment. People can't afford, basic living. And so these plans, we can't plan too far ahead because, it can come a cropper any time.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillors. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. I suppose just as with all of our planning documents, including this one, the living documents, if you like, so we adopt them at this moment with the intention that this is what will happen over this period of time, the 4 years involved. But we are able, as council, to revise those plans if we believe the circumstances arise. So for this and all of our planning documents, they're not set in stone once council adopts them. We adopt it now with good intentions of fulfilling it. If need be, it can return to council for variations in the future.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. All right, I'll talk to this. What I'll just say is the corporate business plan outlines the next 4 years on how we intend to achieve our community 10-year aspirational plan, which is the community strategic plan. It delivers mandatory services, it delivers discretionary services. There's 5 strategic objectives, they're supported by 11 outcomes and 23 strategies that provide the operational direction for the Shire's administration to focus their resources and obviously their finances as well. It's a particularly important plan. It's part of the integrated planning framework that fits within the 10-year community strategic plan, the corporate business plan, which is a 4-year plan, and a 1-year operational plan. So it's critical. This outlines what we're going to do over the next 4 years, and it lines up with our community strategic plan. So it's an important plan, and I support the corporate business plan. Councillor Hughes, you've got a reply.
Nothing further to add.
Councillors, I don't think anyone's speaking against. No one has spoken against. Councillors, in the absence of anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Next item of business is CEO 04 Annual Operating Plan. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to adopt the Annual Operating Plan of 2023-2024. Can I have a mover for this, please? Pothole, thank you. Can I have a mover of the, I think, Councillor Ross? Councillor Angus, thank you. The seconder. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. Planning documents come sort of in tiers or layers where one flows out of another. This annual operating plan comes out of the budget and out of the plan that we've just adopted a moment ago. So it's of benefit to us because it does go into the next level of detail about what the priorities and work program for our officers are for the next 12 months. So I'm pleased to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Angus.
Yes, I'm happy to support it as well, and keeping in mind that, as Councillor Ross said, it is just a plan, aspirational and tied to the budget funding, but I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillors, anyone wish to speak against? Anyone wish to speak for? The only comment I'll make is the annual operating plan aligns with the corporate business plan. So they as Councillor Ross said, they flow together, except it's just a 1 year. It's a 1 year plan that outlines the intent of the work and focus of the administration over the 1 year. Councillor Ross, you have right of reply.
Also, thank you.
Thank you, Councillors, in the absence of no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried without debate 7-0. Thank you. Next item of business is CEO 05, updated Chittering Tourism Advisory Group membership. Council, you have an officer's recommendation to approve the inclusion of Chris Wandena as a full voting member of the Chittering Tourism Advisory Group, as he is a representative of the Bindoon and District Historical Society. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Curtis. Councillor Angus, seconder. Councillor Curtis.
Yes, I think Chris Waldie would be a good addition to the Tourist Advisory Group. He's very well respected in the community, and he has a lot of knowledge on tourism.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Angus.
Yeah, just to add that, as in our information here, Chris has attended every CTAG meeting, and ever since I've lived in the area, I know Chris has been heavily involved in community and functions and things going on, and I think he'd be a very well-received asset to the group.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Anyone want to speak for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Ross.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just again to particularly support this as an important and useful officer recommendation. Mr. Waldie contributes very well at that committee, and because, as well as the museum operations, which are a tourism attraction in their own right, he is also the organiser of the annual Historic Vehicles Day, which again is a significant tourist event for our shire. So we're receiving data from the Museum Historical Society on their tourism figures. It's crazy to have him only as proxy. To have him as a full voting member makes a great deal of sense.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, Councillor Dewar?
I'm just, Chris is an ideal candidate, and there's just only one thing I'll say to him. Can you possibly get a few more old tractors down there?
We need space. If you could provide some money for the space.
Okay.
Perhaps an old farmer should donate one, I would suggest. Dewar, Councillor Dewar. All right. Councillors, is there any further discussion against or for? There's been no discussion against. Councillor Curtis, you have right to reply if you require.
Just what I said, Chris is well respected in the community and he'll make a good member.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. In the absence of anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Next item of business is CO06 Muchea Recreation Centre User Group Community Membership Section. I will remind Council that Councillor Kylie Hughes has declared an interest, as all three nominees are known to her, but it's an interest in common. So that's noted for the record.
Sorry, can I just amend that to add that I'm also a Muchea Netball Club life member because I didn't realise it was appointed.
You can certainly add that, Councillor Hughes. It's a life sentence by the sound of it. Every time there's an item. All right. That being said, correct, thank you. We did the right one this time. Councillors, you have the officer's recommendation there. The only amendment that was made prior to your agenda tonight is that the council delegate and proxy has been inserted, which is Councillor Kylie Hughes as the delegate and Councillor David Dewar as the proxy. Councillors, you have the officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Ross, thank you. Seconder, Councillor, it's got to be Councillor Campbell. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. It's important that we do have members of our community participate in groups like this, so it's pleasing that 3 local people did apply, and I support the officer recommendations to who are the most suitable of those applicants to be appointed, and it's equally important that there are council delegates representing the community as a total on these committees, so I'm very happy with the officer recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Campbell.
Just to add thanks to Natalie Valence, Michelle Davies and Louise Yates for putting their hands up and being part of the reference group, although obviously Louise wasn't successful, but it's still very good that community members are engaging and driving a way forward.
Thank you. Councillor Campbell, councillors.
Mr. President, just a question if I may. Would we set a commencement date of when this group begins to function? Like, is it when it physically opens or does it begin tomorrow? It might be useful for us to designate a starting date as an amendment to this.
Councillor Ross, okay. I'll move an amendment to that effect in a minute. Councillors, anyone speaking? Oh, Councillor Hughes, do you want to move that amendment if you like? The commencement date. So point 4.
Okay, I'll move the amendment to include commencement date.
Yeah, of...
At the moment we are getting regular briefings to council about the progress of the building, and there's no changes being made in that time. But
when do you think the date?
So within the first month after the recreation centre being open to the public.
So we have some suggested wording. be amended to include the reference group commence within 1 month of completion. Actually, let's have it within 1 month prior to completion. Let's meet once before to get.
So this group's is to activate the space within the
Yeah.
thing. So
It needs to be before it's ready to be occupied. So maybe it needs to be 2 months before.
I'm not sure exactly when it's going to be occupied. So.
Yeah, we're not going to know when completion will be.
So we can just. My suggestion is that at least within the month of its opening, that they would have.
All right, opening. Refer it to the opening. Commence within. Or say prior to 1 month, because I think it needs to. Prior to 1 month, commence 1 month prior to its opening. Okay? I think so.
1 month.
And if it's completed, well, they'll just have to wait to open it.
Well, you can't open it to complete it. I took the completed out. Opening. Sorry, we're butchering this amendment.
Hang on, that doesn't seem to... Who knows when the opening's going to be? Exactly.
Convenes. Let's say the reference group
Occupation.
convenes.
Occupation of the building.
But we can't say 1 month before occupation because we never got it.
You don't know when
It's
it's
a practical
opening
completion.
exactly? Or finished exactly? So they can have a meeting a month before that.
1 minute, 1 minute.
You can't do it.
1 minute, let's...
I move we suspend standing orders.
Okay, 8 point, Councillor Ross has moved to suspend standing order 8.6, I think it was. Was that the one? 8.9. 8.9, I'll second that. Councillors, there's a...
Are we all in favour?
Yep. So all those in favour of suspending standing orders? Carried 7-0, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ross. All right, let's get the wording right.
I imagine that the builders would be reasonably well placed to give us an estimated handover date, and whether it says approximately 1 month prior to the opening.
Well, practical completion. Isn't that how builders speak in term things?
Wow.
No, I think you need more than... I don't look.
So a couple of key dates. There is practical completion and there's handover. They're 2 different dates, can be in the contract. And then there's opening. And opening can be any time. So opening's probably not the right word, right? So handover's probably more appropriate word. My view is that we'd want the group to convene before the opening. That's all I'm trying to... Whether it's 1 month or 1 day, but they need to convene because the space will start getting used, and then it's really the go button. So
if that was 1 month prior to the anticipated handover date.
Yep.
And it won't be precise, it can only be anticipated. But as it gets closer, usually they can say, we think on the 10th of August or whatever it might be.
So that would mean that the date which they're anticipating now is the date you're now going to set. Which you can
They might not anticipate it now, but in a month or 2 months they might be in a position to say, we reckon we're a month from finishing and handing it over to you. So they will need to designate that date when they know it, kind of.
Look, I think it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear what we're trying to do here.
Yep.
At a time, about a month prior to handover, we want the reference group to meet and start.
Get started.
Right?
Yep.
That serves that purpose, I think, without getting caught up in too many words.
Yep.
I think.
We're trying to set a date for something we don't actually know the date of.
But it's
important. It's important to give some sort of time frame around when the advisory group first get together.
I know where you're coming from.
Thanks. You're being really difficult, Dave, but thanks, Dave.
So I move we resume standing orders.
I second that. Councillor, we have a motion to resume standing orders. All those in favour? 7-0, thank you.
Sorry, did Councillor Ross move that one?
Yes, and I seconded. Where were we?
The amendment.
The amendment, Councillor Hughes.
Okay, so.
I'll second it.
So we have a mover for the amendment for Councillor Hughes and Councillor Ross is the seconder. Councillor Hughes, you wish to talk to this?
Yeah, just as per our open discussion, it's important to have the date on there so everyone can align their expectations with when this might start and be prepared for that.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Ross?
I think I've said enough. Thanks, Mr. President.
Councillor, is anyone speaking against the amendment? Thank you. Councillor Hughes, no right to reply is probably not required in this occasion. I'll put the amendment to the vote. All those in, I'll declare the vote carried 7-0. Thank you. Who are we up to now? Councillor Hughes, you still have the floor.
Yeah, just on the substantive motion, just to mention that there are over 500 users of that facility, and as I live in Muchea, obviously myself and my family are users, but also I'm approached from time to time in the community, so it would be good to have up-to-date information to be able to share with people should I be queried.
Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor, is anyone speaking against or for the substantive motion? Very good. Councillor Ross, you were the mover, you've right of reply. Councillors, I think, is there anyone speaking against the substantive motion?
No.
If there's no one speaking against the substantive motion, I'll declare carried without debate. 7-0, thank you. Right, CEO 07, Delegated Authority Register Review. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to endorse deletions, endorse correct updates to etc. I won't go through them all, it's an extensive list. We have been briefed well on this item, so can I have a mover and seconder for the officer's recommendation? Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Angus, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Ross, thank you. Councillor Angus.
Just to say that we have workshopped this and discussed the reasons behind the amendments, and I'm happy to support it as it is.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. That's right, we are familiar with the background of all of this and why it needs doing. I guess too, just a cursory glance through it is a reminder of the extent of the legislation that local government holds responsibility for. So just a reminder of how broad things can be.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, anyone speaking against?
Mr. President, I don't know if I'm speaking against it, but I can't understand this declaration here with the dogs. It's the number of dogs kept at number 5.
0.5.
0.5. I can't understand what's. Is this?
So we're dealing with delegations at the moment. Are you looking at CEO 07?
Yes.
So it goes on to the other page, declaration. So if you go over to the next page. 1 minute while we.
So you have to. So it's.
Yes.
So we can declare a dog dangerous as then a dog declaration.
So that declaration goes with that sentence, Councillor Curtis. So it reads, Dog Act 1974, Delegation 5.1.9, determine recoverable expenses for dangerous dog declaration. So that is the policy. That was the
And endorse the new Dog Act, grant exception as to number of dogs kept at premises. So we can grant exceptions to dogs, can we? People apply to the council. I can't all these dogs.
Prescribed.
Cats.
I refer to the CEO to answer that question.
Thank you. This item only deals with the delegation that stems from the local law that's been already adopted. So this Dog Act delegation is just dealing with the actual delegation coming from the Dog Act. It's not dealing with the Act itself or the provisions within the Act. It's dealing with a delegation that stems from the Act.
I'm confused. A delegation from the Dog Act.
Yes.
Anyway, if it comes to council, these dogs that people want to have more than 2 dogs, we can either approve it or don't. I can't.
So perhaps we phrase it this way, that council can delegate some of its responsibilities. And
No.
This delegation register are those responsibilities that are delegated
To the
to the CEO.
No.
That are already existing. They're not. That we're not changing. We're not changing any policy. We're just simply updating the delegation who can make decisions, if you like. So we're not making the decision. We're delegating that decision to the CEO or appropriate officer.
To determine this exemption act.
To
So
determine.
it won't come to council, the CEO or one of the officers will make that judgment. Is that what you're saying?
So in terms of determine recoverable expenses for dangerous dogs, right? So if there's a dangerous dog is declared, it's to the delegated authority to determine what the recoverable expenses for that dog are. That's all that says.
That's good, that's good. Maybe I'm missing something here, but there seems to be a lot of people wanting to have a truckload of dogs in their backyards around the place.
That's a separate, that's policies.
So that's the next one that they
That's the next item.
Can I talk to that?
Yes.
So our local law is based on the Dog Act. We have asked before that we want a workshop with council to have a debate or a discussion about under which circumstances you would allow the office to make those decisions. And that cannot be debated tonight. It needs a workshop in its own, because there might be conditions where, say, two separate families move in together, they get married, they both have dogs, and council would be okay that there would be, as a result, maybe 4 dogs on a premises. But there might be other cases where council feels we will never approve this. But in the absence of such clear guidelines from council or a policy from council, all these things just are brought to council in a void, and then council is sort of forced to approve it because we've approved other ones. So apart from what's here tonight, the delegations, there will be a request for us to have a workshop with council on an actual clear policy and guidelines from council under which circumstances it would be considered or not considered, because we don't have that framework at the moment.
Good. Yep. Very well explained and clear. Thank you.
Just for clarification, can I just state that in the attachments, the information about when it applies and when it will come to council is all there?
Thank you.
Right. Now, let me off track. So,
That was just
Councillor Dewar. Okay, so that was Councillor Dewar. Councillors, any further discussion or debate? Does anyone wish to speak against the officer's recommendation? Councillor Curtis, have you decided?
I support the officers.
Okay, thank you. So, for the avoidance of doubt on this one, I'll put this one to the vote, just because Councillor Curtis was against and now he's for, just to be clear. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation, put that to the vote. Carried 7-0. It's beyond clear now. Thank you. Next item of business, CEO 08, Register of Policies Amendments. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to endorse amendments to, well, there's amendments and deletions, I guess, to the policies. Can I have a mover and seconder for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Curtis is the mover. Seconder, Councillor Angus, thank you. Councillor Curtis.
Yes, Mr. President, I'll just support the officer's recommendation as it's written. Nothing to say.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Councillor Angus.
Yeah, we have also discussed these and the reasoning for the amendments, and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Council, is anyone speaking against it? For it? Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. Among the things that are why the auditors have spoken about some of these matters is that if you have council interfering in the administration, that's poor governance. Equally, some of these are being deleted because they're covered elsewhere. If you have the same thing covered in two different documents, your opportunity to keep them aligned is very hard, and so you wind up with contradictory documents out there. So there's a whole lot of kind of cleaning up that's going on in this process, and I think that's good governance, good practice.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. The other thing I'll just want to capture on some of the points that Councillor Ross made in this officer's recommendations, the reasons why a policy has been deleted has been explained in point 2, so that it's crystal clear why and these number of policies are being deleted, and it's also clear why some are being amended. So some are being deleted because they fall under an operational directive, and others are being deleted because they're covered by other policies. So some effort has gone into to make sure that the preamble into each one of these points is sufficiently detailed so that any reader can understand the reasons behind each one of these points. So I thank the CEO for doing that. All right, anyone else? Anyone speaking? No one speaking against, I imagine, I hope, or not. No one's, who's got right to reply? Councillor Curtis, you got right to reply. If you...
Nothing more to say. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Curtis. If there's no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried without debate 7-0. Thank you. CEO 09, Swoop Regional Connectivity Program, RCP3 request for support. Councillors, you have a request to consider providing a letter of support to Swoop for their Regional Connectivity Program bid for funding. Councillors, can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation?
I'll move.
Councillor Campbell. Seconder, please. Councillor Angus. Councillor Campbell.
Thank you, President King. So basically, Swoop are asking for a letter of support in a bid to raise funding for better fixed wireless infrastructure in the region. I can see why we should support them. Obviously, we can get better internet, faster speeds. So fully support it, and hopefully they can also address our mobile reception coverage at the same time. I see they do offer both services. So hopefully there's a bigger plan in play.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Angus.
Yeah, I think what they're aiming to do is quite important in our shire. I'm sure there will be people who object to their advancements, but when we look at the whole of the Shire, it's going to benefit a lot of people, especially with more people working from home these days, needing internet. Kids in their education or university studies, they can't do that anymore without internet connection. It's not going to cost us anything as a Shire, so I'm happy to support them.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Anyone else speak against the officer's recommendation? I wish to speak for the officer's recommendation when I get to where I want to go. I think I want to put up an advice note for this, if I can. I'll give you the words. I want prepared earlier. I just want to make this pretty clear. In fact, I'll just give this to you. Oops, very bad thing to do.
Just the last sentence?
I took the last sentence out.
Okay.
The rest is all good. I'll tell you about the early one that fell out of my bag. All right, so I'll read this out. It is generally prudent for a council to support efforts to improve infrastructure for its residents. Providing support for this service provider's application for a grant does not preclude other companies to apply for the same support and does not infer that the Shire is singled out this service provider as the sole supplier to be supported. It also does not guarantee that their grant submission. In fact, you can probably delete that last sentence. It does not. I just think that's so. Councillors, that yeah, you can delete that. I think that's the point. Can I? That's my move. I'm moving that. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Ross. So I'll speak to this. So I just wanted. I'm all for the support of Swoop, but it needs to be clear that the support. We provide support for anyone who applies for these types of grants, and it doesn't preclude other companies from seeking our support for supporting the same grant application. So I thought it's just clear. I would like to just make sure that was crystal clear within the officer's recommendation to ensure that it was transparent. Anyway, thank you. Councillor Ross.
I agree, Mr. President. I think this is just being cautious that this letter of support can't be misunderstood either by our community or by service providers. I think it's worth supporting.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, anyone speaking against the amendment? I want to speak for the amendment. No one speaking for the amendment. No right of reply is required. I'll declare the amendment carried 7-0 without debate. That is me done. Thank you. Councillors. Any further debate? Anyone speaking against? No. Councillor Campbell, you have the right of reply.
Nothing further. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. In the absence of anyone voting against the officer's recommended or the substantive motion that is on the screen, I'll declare carried 7-0. The next item of business is CEO 10, affixing lettering of Recreation Centre in Muchea. You have an officer's recommendation in front of you to approve the lettering to be affixed for the new Recreation Centre in Muchea as Muchea Recreation Centre to reflect the more modern reference and purpose of this facility. Councillors, can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Curtis. Councillor Ross. Councillor Curtis.
Yes, Mr. President, I support the officer's recommendation, and I'd like to make an amendment or a note advice to go with that.
You can do.
That the name be Muchea Recreation Centre with a logo with Mary trees on it. So it's free Mary.
John, you take the cake tonight.
No, I think it,
I can't miss that.
It'll remind everyone every time they see the sign that there were Mary trees there.
Just one minute,
facetious.
1 minute, Councillor Curtis. Can I just refer to the Chief Executive Officer in regards to the logoing?
So the logo of the Shire is the corporate image of the Shire, and we cannot change it at will. But there is opportunities within the rec centre to name some of those rooms. Perhaps one of them could be called the Murray Meeting Room if they wanted to. But those things will be discussed once this new group works on that.
I think the Mary trees is part of the Muchea Centre, so I think it could be put it on the sign. It wouldn't hurt.
Perhaps the reference group could decide that later.
The reference, yeah, that's true. I mean, Councillor Curtis, we already have a branded logo for the Shire of Chittering.
I understand that. Yeah.
So that's the branded logo that's on all of these facilities and so forth. And again, it's probably, Councillor Hughes' point's quite valid, that it's probably the reference advisory group that should review and make a recommendation in that regard. That's it's up to you. You can still go forward with it, or you can.
Well, I'll put it to the vote. Who wants to?
Okay, put it to the vote.
As an amendment.
As an amendment.
I don't know. Logo to be inserted on the name of Muchea Recreation Centre.
Can we just refer to the CEO to get some wording on this?
I think maybe we can just add there that next to the lettering, an image of or a logo of Mary trees be affixed.
Of 3 Mary trees.
I know it's getting late. Of 28.
That's what John said.
We are on camera here.
I know we are.
That's what John said.
Right. Thank you.
Is that what your intention was, Councillor Curtis?
Next to the lettering of the image, an image of Mary trees to be fixed. Yes, thanks to know.
Okay, Councillor Curtis, you're on the mover. Can I have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Curtis, I believe it lapses for a lack of a seconder. Councillor Curtis, any further discussion?
No further discussion.
Councillor Ross.
I think just that the suggested name in the recommendation is most appropriate because anything like this that we ever build anywhere will be a multi-purpose, multi-function facility, so to simply capture it in the word recreation I think is very suitable.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, Councillor Dewar.
Yeah, although it is a recreation centre built in Muchea, I think going back it was, to be recognised as a whole of Shire, a standout facility. So even though I agree with the naming, I think there should be some attention focus put on the fact that it is a whole of Shire facility.
Thank you, Councillor Dewar. Councillor Angus.
Just in response to Councillor Dewar's comment just now, I understand that yes, it is a establishment for all of Chittering, but we do have Lower Chittering Hall, we do have Wandena Hall, is it called? So if we were to call that one Chittering Hall, Chittering's pretty big and people wouldn't really know where it is, so I think it needs to be Muchea Recreation Centre. And also in regards to John's Trees logo, we have talked about having history around the building, in the building, as we did with Lower Chittering as well. And I think it's important to make sure that we do have a nice picture of the trees before they go, and that can be there in the recreation centre with the history. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillors. Okay,
Sorry, I've just
Councillor
got a
Hughes.
question. I don't think that it's ever not going to be a sport and recreation centre. Like sport, there's an oval, there's courts, there's those sporting aspects are never going away. So I don't see that there'd be an issue with calling it sport and recreation centre. I think that is still modern and reflects its overall use. So can I propose an amendment to include the word Muchea Sport and Recreation Centre? I think that reflects the overall use of the facility.
Okay, Councillor Hughes, can I have you're the mover for your amendment?
Just to add that word.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder for Councillor Hughes? Councillor Dewar. Thank you, Councillor Hughes.
Oh yeah, just I don't think that it's ever not going to include the use of sport because the main infrastructure, the oval and the courts cannot really be repurposed for anything other than sport. So I think that name better reflects the overall use of the facility. It doesn't detract from any of the other uses either. I think it doesn't include Community Hall, which is what is currently known as the Muchea Hall, but it is largely locally known as the Muchea Sport and Rec Centre, Sport and Rec Facility currently.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Dewar.
Yeah, I concur with Councillor Hughes' comments. It's going to be, or intended to be, the premier sport facility in the Shire, so I think the word sport or sporting should be included in the naming of the facility. Seems to make sense, as there's lots of courts and ovals, etc., etc. And I don't think that would probably overrun the budget on a slightly bigger sign, would it?
Thank you, Councillor Dewar, for your budget considerations. Council, amendment. Councillor against? Anyone speaking against? Sorry, Councillor Ross, you're speaking against?
Yes.
Okay, Councillor Ross, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. President. My thinking when this item came before us is that we're talking about the building, and it is a recreation centre. The building has almost no sport that will take place within it. The whole complex might be a sport and recreation centre, the whole site, but I think the building itself is more about recreation. So, for example, the club rooms that the teams go to after their games are in that building. The hall-type uses, the other group users who are there. So to me, this is about the name of the building, and it is a recreation centre. If it needed to carry both names, which I don't believe it does, I would put the wording the other way around and have recreation and sports centre. Because after all, sport is recreation, a form of recreation. The priority is recreation.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Angus.
This isn't something I'd really thought about, whether it had the word sport in or not, but I can see the point of including it. And seeing a name on the building, if that's the only real big sign there, people would probably equate it with the whole complex, not just the building. And one thought that comes to mind is if the word sport is in it, it may make a difference for future funding for sports if we have the word sport there. So I'll probably support it. I think.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. I'll speak to it. So if you look up the definition of recreation, because the word sport makes sense, but recreation is any activity of leisure, well, leisure being discretionary time, which would cover sport. So the word recreation covers the use of sport. So you're almost saying this is the Muchea sport, right, with the two words. I can see how sport fits, but I can see how sport doesn't fit as well. So I'm a little bit torn because Muchea Recreation Centre sort of comes off the tongue quite simply. Muchea Sport and Rec still comes off quite reasonably, but I'm concerned, well, maybe you're saying sport centre in a lot of respects in English. And so recreation should cover all of its functions, but I'm not particularly twisted one way or the other, to be quite honest. I mean, I refer to it as Muchea Recreation Centre, just out of my mind, knowing that it's a centre for sport. So I'm really not sure, to be quite honest. I'm still not sure. Who hasn't spoken? Councillor Campbell?
I looked up the meaning as well. And yeah, it could be sport and recreation, or it could just be recreation. I just prefer the compact name of it, Muchea Rec Centre or Recreation Centre. So my opinion would go for the Muchea Recreation Centre. They're both suited, but I think let's keep it short, snappy, and save some dollars on the side in the interest of the budget.
Thank you. And Councillor Curtis. Councillor Curtis?
Mr. President, I think we should just leave for the moment and See what other shires, other councils do. You know, City of Perth, what do they name their recreation centres? You know, see what the normal thing is.
I think you just named it.
Sorry?
I think you just named it. Thank you, Councillor Curtis.
Maybe call it John Curtis Rec Centre, sorry.
Councillor Hughes, you're the mover, right of reply?
Yeah, I don't believe there would be a substantially difference in cost of the sign. And I think it's more like what would you put your GPS to find it if you're going to attend something there. Because at the moment, Muchea Hall is what you'd put in your GPS to find Muchea Hall. It's not if you're going to the Oval or the netball courts, but Muchea Hall doesn't reflect exactly what is its core use either, because that's what we're kind of replacing. So I think Sport and Rec Centre is what most people would Google to go there. And I think it'd just make it easier for people to find it, to be honest.
Okay, fine. Okay, we'll, I think we'll put this to the vote. So this amendment replaces that one then.
Change the wording to Muchea Sport and Recreation
Yep.
Centre.
All right, councillors, you have the amendment in front of you. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment? Against? Lost 3-4. And against was Councillor Jewett. You against?
No, sorry, it was the other one.
No, sorry. I was for them. It's getting late.
Two against, Angus, you and yours.
What's it going to be the name? MRC?
Yes, that's right.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So we're still back to the original.
Yes.
We're back to the. We're
How
back to. Sorry, we're back to the standard motion. Councillor Hughes.
Oh, nothing.
Thank you. Right. Councillor Campbell and myself haven't spoken yet.
New hall, new name.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've exhausted this one, to be honest. So, right of reply not required. Councillor Curtis, right of reply not required.
What's the name going to be?
Well, at the moment the substantive motion reads as it is up the top there. That council approve the lettering affixed to the new recreation centre in Muchea as Muchea Recreation Centre.
Yes, I'll vote for that.
Okay, no right of reply. All right, let's put this to the vote given the confusion. All those in favour of the substantive motion? All those in favour? Carried 6-1 against, Dave. Thank you. 6-1. Item 10, reports of committees. COM 01, Chittering Tourism Advisory Group minutes. Councillors, you have a recommendation to receive the minutes held on the 1st of June 23. And know the recommendations. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Angus. Seconder, looks like Councillor Ross, thank you. Councillor Angus.
I'm happy to receive the minutes. There was a question I had previously, but really we have no control over what happened at that meeting. I'm happy to receive the minutes.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillor Ross. No, thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillors, anyone speaking against the offer's recommendation to receive the minutes? Councillor Angus, you have the right of reply.
Just perhaps I should clarify for the gallery. My question about the minutes was there was information about tourism visitors in the area, and there was one item where there were twice as many visitors this year as last year, but the financial difference was only about $50 more for twice as many visitors, which didn't seem to add up. But we're just receiving the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Anyone speaking again? Oh, that was right of reply, sorry.
Yeah.
Right of replies had. If no one speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0 without debate. Goes on. COM 02, Chittering Bushfire Advisory Committee, unconfirmed minutes from Tuesday, 13th of June 2023. Councillors, you have an office recommendation to receive the unconfirmed minutes. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Angus. Seconder, Councillor Ross. Thank you. Councillor Angus.
No discussion, just happy to receive them.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillor Ross.
Indeed, there are items later that deal with the committee.
Thank you. Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Councillor Angus, right of reply?
Nothing,
Not
thank you.
required. Thank you. Councillors, in the absence of anyone voting against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. COM 03, membership of the Chittering Bushfire Advisory Committee. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to endorse the membership as listed in the item. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation, please? Councillor Ross, thank you. Councillor Campbell. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. This item and the following one are annual items that come before us that follow the AGMs of the bushfire units, etc. So we're simply here to confirm the elections and appointments that the elections that have been made at those AGMs. And I guess we should always be very grateful to these people who are volunteers in our community, have put their hand up to take on these leadership roles.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Campbell.
Nothing further to add.
Councillors, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Thank you. Councillor Ross, to require right of reply. Thank you. Councillors, in the absence of anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Thank you. COM 04, appointment of bushfire control officers of 2023-2024. Council, you have officer's recommendation to endorse the appointment of the bushfire officers. Can I have a mover for the officer's recommendation? Councillor Campbell, maybe?
Yeah, that's right.
We get to that point. Seconder, Councillor Ross. Councillor Campbell.
These appointed leaders are quite pivotal in the way we manage our bushfire risk, so fully support it, and without them we wouldn't have probably one of the better bushfire brigades in Western Australia, so fully endorse it.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Councillor Ross, nothing to add. Councillor, anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Right to reply. Thank you. Councillors, in the absence of anyone speaking against the officer's recommendation, I'll declare carried 7-0. Next item of business is COM 05, Chittering Bushfire Advisory Committee. Motion to lobby Main Roads WA to commence construction of the Bindun bypass. Councillors, you have an officer's recommendation to resume lobbying and to make contact with Main Roads. So that's the general nut of the officer's recommendation. Can I have a mover and a seconder for mover? Councillor Ross, just quick. Seconder, please. Councillor Dewar. Councillor Ross.
Thanks, Mr. President. It may seem unusual that a matter like this would arise out of the Bushfire Committee's meeting. But among the matters we discussed that evening was that in the last few months there have been 3 truck incidents within 50k radius of Bindoon where an ammonium nitrate truck has been in a significant accident. One was on the 2nd of April, going on the southern side of Bindoon Hill, where a truck trying to overtake an ammonium nitrate truck clipped the back of it. The highway was closed all day, and that could have been a quite serious incident. The more recent one was on the 3rd of June on the New Norcia bypass near the Klingery turnoff, where the truck caught fire. By good fortune, the driver was in a position to extinguish the fire, but there was a 2-kilometre evacuation radius put in place, so the town of New Norcia was evacuated at 10 at night, came back home at 3 in the next morning. The point that was raised is that should something like that happen straight outside here, where we are, then the town of Bindoon is in serious danger and it's not going to be an easy place to evacuate. So the thinking that arose from the meeting was that maybe we need to be lobbying again to get the bypass moved as far forward time-wise as possible, with particular emphasis on the regular daily danger that particularly the town of Bindoon is in with the number of these trucks and other placarded trucks as well. It's not just the ammonium nitrate trucks. So that's how point 1 in the motion arose. The second point, in further discussion at the meeting, we realised that when an incident like, say, the New Norcia one happens, where it's a substantial accident, there is no one nearby who has any training in how to deal with it. Our volunteer fireys are not trained in anything like significant motor vehicle accidents that involve hazardous materials. So even if Main Roads decided to build the bypass tomorrow, it takes years to build it. So our thinking was that we contact Main Roads. The view of the meeting was that having an emergency plan is the responsibility probably of Main Roads because it's their road, and to ask them what is their emergency plan, because locally we don't have people who are specifically trained in how to deal with situations like that. The risk of that is that out of their goodwill to serve the community, our fireys are likely to show up and may find themselves exposed to danger and injured in the process. The other view that was expressed when this clause was being constructed is that perhaps Main Roads will handball it on to DFES. That probably needs clarifying. Like, the point of this might be to kind of say, to virtually ask Main Roads to kind of admit back they don't have a plan, because that was the view that came up in the meeting. So it's really to say, there's a danger here and we can't solve it in a day, but we need to keep alerting the authorities to the fact that what's happening is inherently dangerous. So that's kind of the background of the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. Councillor Dewar.
Yeah, look, great motion, or very intelligent motion here. I fully support it. And yeah, basically it just comes back to safety. There's a lot of big trucks going up and down this particular road, and if something does go wrong, it would be catastrophic. So we do need to lobby hard Main Roads to get this bypass done as soon as possible, I reckon.
Councillor Dewar. Councillor Angus.
I'm not speaking against, but I'm speaking for, yeah. In regards to point 1, at the last zone meeting a couple of months ago, I did speak to the Main Roads rep and asked about the bypass. He assured me that it was proceeding and was in progress. Councillor King and I are going to the zone meeting again this Friday, and there is usually a Main Roads rep there, and we will certainly ask again. And we can also ask about point 2 while we're there.
Thank you, Councillor Angus. Councillors, anyone speaking against? Or
for? Against, no. For.
Yes, Councillor Curtis. Go for it.
Yeah, I'd like to make an amendment or a note to the officer's recommendation.
Okay.
Request main roads to install a 40-kilometre zone through the Bindoon town site for trucks transporting explosive or dangerous loads until the bypass is completed.
Councillor Curtis, this amendment is not within keeping of the nature of the substantive motion. The substantive motion deals with outcomes from the Bushfire Advisory Committee in regards to placarded loads and emergency responses. Your amendment is to...
It's not an amendment, it's an extra request, isn't it?
Well, it's an amendment.
Main roads to reduce the speed limit.
The amendment is not within keeping of the...
It's also not a note, it's an action.
And it's not a note, it's not advised note, you're making a request. Here.
I'll bring up the motion next month then.
Yes, you can bring up.
Yeah.
So we can delete that. Thank you, Councillor Curtis. Have I missed anyone else wish to talk to this? Anyone speaking against? Councillor's right of reply, Councillor Ross.
I suppose just to kind of concede, Mr President, that we understand this is not going to solve the problem overnight and that the responses we get may frustrate us further, but we need to have a voice. We need to say this is not okay for the people of this particular community here in Bindoon.
Councillor Ross. Councillors, I'll put this one to the vote. I'm not sure who sits where on this one. Councillors, I'll put this to the vote. All those in favour of the officer's recommendation? Carried 7-0. Avoid any doubt. Right. Item 11. Motions of which previous notice has been given. There are nil. Questions, item 12, questions from members without notice. Are there any questions from members? Thank you. Item 13, new business of an urgent nature introduced by decision of the meeting. There are nil. Item 4, meeting closed to the public. There are nil matters. Item 15, closure. I declare the meeting closed at 9:47. Thank you.